Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider alongside Brandon Crossland. Brandon, I see you've got the Fernando Alonso hat on. I guess you're starting to celebrate the month of May already.
Yeah, it's the celebration's been long awaited, and we're back again in the month of May. We're done going right at IMS and finally get to go left, and that's always a celebrated time. Unfortunately, no bumping this year, as this hat is a tribute to, but it's certainly a fun time to be a fan of motorsport whenever Indy cars are at the Brickyard.
At least we have a full field this year. I know there were some concerns that we weren't even going to get that, so we have to be thankful for what we have, and I'm sure it's going to be a great Indy 500 race weekend as always. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Indy Lights Series running their own race on the IMS road course a little bit later, but since we have a little bit of a shorter show tonight, I do want to give you the opportunity, since you weren't on the wrap-up show yesterday. Real quick, what's your reaction to Kurt Busch and 23XI Racing's success yesterday in the Cup race? And how do you feel about the tire issues? It seems like we keep coming back to these issues with the wheels on the next-gen car. What was your reaction to all of that yesterday?
Oh, it's fantastic, first of all, for 23XI. And we've kind of been pitting them against Trackhouse Racing for the beginning of this year, thinking, okay, which new team, 23XI now expanding to a two-car operation, which one of these is going to be better than the other in their early stages of being a team? And at the beginning, it looked like Ross Chastain was really carrying. I mean, Daniel Suarez also putting up the finishes as well for Trackhouse, but really the answer seemed to be that it was going to be Trackhouse. But now starting to see some momentum by way of Kurt Busch winning at Kansas Speedway. What a win for not only Kurt Busch and 23XI, but also for the Jordan brand. Michael Jordan, having that part ownership in the team and having his brand on the car. That's a way to debut your paint scheme, is to just go out there and win it. And it's great for Kurt Busch, his last win at Atlanta last year. And it's just strange the wins that he's gotten here lately in what we know is certainly the latter stage of his career. It's usually when his brother Kyle is up there with him and battling with him. I don't know why that keeps occurring, but we'll take it. It's fun. It's fun to watch the Busch brothers affair. As far as tires go, yeah, that's starting to be an issue, and a lot of people pointing fingers at Goodyear being with their contract ending this year. Are they going to renew? Is NASCAR going to allow them to renew, or are they looking different ways behind the scenes? We know Hoosier makes an awfully good racing tire, but certainly don't want any kind of tire war thing going on. So I don't want to repeat nightmares of the past. We need to look at something that's going to be strong and reliable for this Gen 7 machine. And so far, Goodyear's been kind of hit and miss, and just a lot of flats to speak of at Kansas. And you can't have that sort of thing too frequently. And it's not just been at Kansas, as you've seen, Ben. It's been several other races this year as well. And last night, just because we were talking about tire woes, it made me want to go back and look at the 2008 Brickyard 400 again, just to see all the optimism they had in the pre-race show. And they were like, well, there might be a tire issue today, but we're hoping that's not the case. We're going to have a good race. 4 hours later, oh my goodness, there's a tire problem. Hopefully that's not the case this year. But yeah, Goodyear's contract is coming to a close. I don't see NASCAR leaving Goodyear just for the sake of aesthetic and for the relationship they've had with NASCAR for so long, and also Dale Jr. being a big advocate of Goodyear. I think if I was president of NASCAR right now, I would also be torn on two sides. I don't know where your take is, though.
Well, I've got a feeling they're probably going to renew.
Yeah.
I feel like we keep hearing rumors about, a new manufacturer joining or, things like that from time to time. We haven't really heard any rumors about Firestone being interested, or Hoosier, or, General Tire doing what they're doing now with the ARCA Series. I feel like if there was some movement or some rumors surrounding that, then maybe you could say Goodyear might be in trouble in terms of if they even wanted to stay on. But I think they do. I think they have a pretty good relationship with NASCAR, generally speaking. And they, for the most part, have done a good job. It's just, when they mess up, it obviously causes a lot of problems. I think Jimmy Johnson was probably the only person that was happy at Indianapolis that day with all the tire issues that were going on there. And speaking of Indianapolis, we have a day in the life saying he is a fan of the Fernando Alonso hat from a few years ago. Also bringing up the Busch brothers, surprised that they never got a sponsorship offer with Busch Beer. I suppose that's something that I guess would work well with their names there. But
we wonder that in the same way that Jimmy Johnson didn't get a deal with Jimmy John's.
That's true. And it reminds me, I guess, was that just last year or was that 2 years ago that Kevin Harvick ran the Busch car that said Harvick instead of Busch? And,
yeah.
Yeah, it was like the kids diecast that they have to censor, except they actually ran the scheme in real life.
Or EA Sports or something. I think that was 2 years ago, if memory serves me well.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was during the cloud of that was 2020. I think that happened, or 2019 maybe, somewhere back there, just a few years ago.
It was fitting though that Busch finally ended their sponsorship of the second tier series, and then that was really when Kyle Busch started to, with Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing, dominate that series for so many years. And of course, he's only now just stepped away, but he's still doing it in trucks. I know we've talked about that quite a bit on this show, but it is interesting that there are two drivers sponsored, or two drivers with the last name of Busch racing in NASCAR, and Busch is obviously very active in their sponsorship with Anheuser-Busch and all their different brands from time to time, and yet all throughout their history they've never connected with each other. So it is kind of interesting. You think that might be a good marketing opportunity?
Yeah, it'll make plenty of what ifs and paint shops online paint shops everywhere. But yeah, it's certainly something to ponder why these perfect matches made in heaven never happen.
Well, speaking of Indianapolis a little bit here, let's get started with a recap of the Indy Lights race. It was a doubleheader this weekend. We don't have as many of those this year as we've had the last couple of years, but this one was a doubleheader. And despite the wild conditions, all 14 cars were running at the finish of both races in the doubleheader this weekend. Christian Rasmussen and Linus Lundqvist did collide on the opening lap, but they, as you can see on the screen, recovered to finish 4th and 5th, respectively. Shout out to Daniel Frost for picking up his first career win ahead of Hunter McElroy, who desperately needed a good run after his struggles to start the season in the opening 2 rounds. And Stingray Robb coming home in 3rd as well. Now, race 2 was actually interrupted by weather and lightning for roughly 5 hours. On lap 14, the race was red flagged due to lightning in the area. And then the IndyCar Series had to run their entire race, the GMR Grand Prix, in mixed conditions before the race resumed following IndyCar's conclusion. Lundqvist took the win in race 2 ahead of Rasmussen and Robb. He also holds a commanding points lead with 175 points, 34 ahead of Frost in 2nd. So Brandon, Lundqvist was 3rd in points last season. Has he established himself as the early championship favorite this season?
So far, he's done a pretty good job at cementing himself there in the points. And as short as an Indy Lights season is, you can definitely say, yeah, he's one of the championship favorites here early in the running as they head to Detroit. I do like Daniel Frost getting that first career victory. That was a sight to see in race number 1. And it was nice to see the emotion of a first-time winner, especially at Indianapolis.
Yeah, I have to say, I think Frost is certainly going to have a bit of a confidence boost after picking up his first win, and he is 2nd in points right now, so you can't completely count him out of a championship fight just yet. But Lundqvist has multiple wins now. He's got a lot of momentum. He's got experience with what he went through last year. So I think if you had to put any money on it at this point in the season, Lundqvist is probably your safest bet. But again, still relatively early. There's a lot of racing to be done. Unfortunately, there won't be any racing in a couple of weeks because the Freedom 100 is still not back on the calendar. I know a lot of fans are disappointed about that. But it is still early in the season, so there's still a lot of time for drivers to come back up and give Lundqvist a run for this championship. But I think he's certainly the favorite at this point.
Now, later on in the year, there will be no corner for me to crawl in because I won't be able to say it's early in the season. It'll be like, no, it's definitely later in the season. You need to make a decision here. So
we are getting to the midpoint in a lot of these series here.
I'll get back to you in August on all these predictions.
That sounds good. Well, like I mentioned, unfortunately, no Freedom 100 this year, but they will return. The Indy Lights Series will after the Indy 500 weekend when the series visits the Detroit street circuit. So we will look forward to that. Now, shifting gears to the ARCA Menards Series, we have got beef in the ARCA Menards Series right now. On Saturday, Drew Dollar and Corey Heim wrecked while fighting for the lead. Dollar got loose while he was underneath Heim and ended up taking both drivers out of the race. Now, Heim's crew chief and Heim's crew chief and team owner Billy Venturini, Drew Dollar's former team owner Billy Venturini did not hold back in an FS1 interview after the wreck happened. Take a look.
Well, I mean, I know how David Gilliland feels. Like, Drew wrecks all your when he's driving for you, and then he wrecks it all when he's racing against you. So I can understand why he punched him in the eye over at Bristol last year. Just typical bonehead move by Drew. He's killed a couple of my cars here, and now he's killed one and wasn't even driving for it. I mean, just look at it. Just pure lack of talent. Great kid, does not need to be a race car driver. He's got a lot of other things he can probably do and make a good living.
Well, just this afternoon, Dollar fired back at Venturini, tweeting, "Talk about a pure lack of talent. Yes, it took this guy about 14 years to figure out he didn't need to be a race car driver." Going to Racing Reference and pulling up Billy Venturini's ARCA stats, to which Venturini came back and replied, "Took you 2 days to come up with a reply? Who did you employ to give you this comeback?" So, Brandon, do you have a problem with Venturini's comments, Dollar's tweet, both or neither? What's your take on this beef that we have now in the ARCA Menards Series?
This is pretty childish beef. I mean, I thought we graduated from middle school here. You see the same things in middle school hallways all the time, little fights like this. My goodness. And Billy Venturini, I didn't know exactly. I mean, I know about the team and everything, but I didn't know exactly what this gentleman looked like or what he talked like. I hope he's not like this all the time. He certainly seems like he's, I know he's been in the sport for a long time, but man, that it definitely looked like someone who is not actually himself. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say this was a heat in the moment situation, and this is not the kind of response he would normally give. But my goodness, that. And then that wasn't censored, by the way, on FS1. I believe we had to take care of that. Thank you, Ben.
Yes, we did.
But also, just a sorry way to put yourself on a national broadcast. I really hope, Mr. Venturini, that was not your normal song and dance. As for the driver in question, Drew Dollar, I've just heard around the bend that he's not the best of drivers in all sorts of situations, but isn't he like 19 years old?
I believe he is 21.
Oh, well,
when I think about it, but yes, early 20s, and certainly on the younger side, still trying to develop in his career.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't in the car. I didn't see what Corey Heim saw from his mirror, but coming out of 4, that just looks like a driver that got loose. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, well, the thing was, I think Corey and Drew have a good relationship off the track, and I think Corey wasn't even too mad about it. He understood that it was a racing deal. The problem, and I think this is where Venturini is coming from here, is that we have seen this quite a bit from Drew Dollar. He has been a little bit more accident prone than his peers. We have a comment here from A Day in Life saying typical ARCA drama, but now on social media. I mean, it gives us something to talk about. We can say that at the bare minimum. But I think what Drew, my problem with Drew's tweet is that he showed the entire stat sheet for Billy Venturini's career as a driver, and they share the number in the win column with only one win. I don't know if that's what he was going for, but he also showed that Venturini, I can pull the tweet back up here. It's going to be pretty small. I don't know if you can tell, but his last 4 full-time seasons, he finished 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd in the point standings. And this is back when we had a much deeper field in the ARCA Menards Series. There were a lot of Cup teams using their own cars for driver development and things like that. And if you take a look at the running at the finish column, it's a pretty decent ratio there. Not too different from Drew Dollar, who's had quite a handful of DNFs himself. So I don't really know what he was going for. When he tweeted this out, it seems to me that he actually showed that Venturini, obviously, they're one of the top teams in ARCA. So the Venturini family as a whole, as owners, they've done a fantastic job. But he had a decent career in the ARCA Menards Series as a driver himself. I don't really know what he proved with this tweet here.
Yeah, it looked pretty decent. As I went to full screen there and saw all the top 5s and top 10s, I don't know exactly what this proves. But yeah, that's besides the point, though. I think Drew Dollar made a great, honest apology there. Even him being heat in the moment as well. on the day of the racetrack, that is. I think they're both kind of out of their lane, firing it up on the Bird app, but that's just the nature of it. And it gives us something to talk about. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's one of those things. It's forgotten by the next week.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this as well here. I am classically educated. I took a logic class in high school, and I don't remember too much from that specifically, but I do remember a couple of fallacies. One of them is tu quoque, which means you also. And, I think that might be a fallacy that Dollar was using there, just because Billy Venturini had what you might consider a lackluster career, even though he did have some solid points finishes. He only had one win. That doesn't disqualify him from calling out Drew Dollar if he has been accident prone, if he was frustrated that he took out one of your cars. I don't know that Dollar's argument there really stands on itself, but it is. The other thing, obviously, like I said, Dollar is still, a Toyota development driver, and Venturini are the top Toyota team in ARCA. I guess you could maybe throw in the KBM car that he's now driving, but I'm talking in terms of a multi-car team that primarily focuses on the ARCA Menards Series. Venturini is the top dog there, and to kind of burn a bridge for a guy that you were driving for just 6 months ago. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's not the wisest decision to make either. So, like a day in my life here said, I think it's just typical ARCA drama, but it's pretty childish that it boiled over to the point where, I was going to play the clip anyway and ask what we thought of Billy Venturini's interview on television, and now we have tweets to talk about as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up taking logic classes, because the only fallacy I can think of is the Mott and Bailey fallacy, if that rings a bell.
We might have had a different term for that, but I remember a handful here. But it's
anyway, that piqued my curiosity.
It does seem kind of childish here at the end of the day. I think that both of them probably could have handled the situation a little bit better, and I would have liked to have seen, maybe if Dollar had seen the interview on television, maybe I'm sure he has contact information for Billy. Obviously, he drove for him for a couple of years, so handle that outside of the public sphere so that we don't have to read all of your beef and everything. I think it's entertaining, I guess, but it at the same time it's kind of silly.
And that also shows some underlying dirt that maybe last year, even while driving for Venturini, that Venturini just had some overall hatred for his own driver. Well, this is just a venting out of what he's been feeling for the past couple of years.
I mean, in fairness, he did call him a great kid. So
that doesn't help. That's in the South. That's like saying "bless your heart."
Yeah,
and like completely ripping somebody to shreds. Yeah. Oh, bless his heart.
Yeah,
he's an idiot. Bless his heart.
Yeah. Well, we will certainly monitor that and see if anything comes of that. I think Dollar only has one start left, if I recall correctly. I know that's primarily Sammy Smith's car. He's just not old enough to run the 1.5 miles yet. So we'll see. Yeah. How many more opportunities Dollar has to race against the Venturini Motorsports cars here. We've had some comments come in from the chat room. I'll see one about Roger Carruth. We'll get to him in a second. The Day of My Life says Remax was an amazing sponsor for ARCA. We would get tickets for ARCA races. That really was an era, I think, where the field was quite a bit stronger than it's been ever since Remax left. I think slowly but surely the fields have gone down in size a little bit, and I'm thankful that Menards has stepped up, particularly for the East and the West series, even though they're a Midwest chain, so there are no Menards stores on either the East or West Coast, but that's beside the point. I think race fans certainly appreciate the sponsorship either way here.
I love the Remax hot air balloons. Those were my favorite part of that sponsorship. It looks so cool at the track.
Yep. Adam Lemerise is in the chat room tonight. So good to see you, Adam. First of 10 straight days of motorsports coverage. Yes.
That's right.
And, we'll plug this at the end here as well, but Kobe and Adam will have Grid Tonight all week covering practice at the Indianapolis 500. So stay tuned for that. Josh Birch and I will be joining him and Kobe throughout the week. So stay tuned for more news on that front as well. Back to the day in the life. I was impressed with Roger Carruth getting a second place finish with his Xfinity and truck starts. Can he run full time in a NASCAR series in 2023? Brandon, if you want to take that question.
Let me scroll down to it. I didn't quite. It's not on the screen anymore. There we go. Okay, all right, I found it. Yeah.
Asking if Raja might have a full-time opportunity next year in a national touring series for NASCAR.
Yeah, hopefully. He's made a few starts already in Xfinity, and I think still some left to go. Certainly might get a truck start. I mean, a full truck ride, if not the Xfinity. But yeah, he could make that jump.
Well, getting back to Caruth and Rev Racing here, I guess we should talk about who actually won the race. Everybody's talking about the beef between Venturini and Dollar here, but I do want to give a shout out to Rev Racing. That's really what opened the door for them to come through. They really had the two dominant cars of the race, the fastest cars of the race, taken out in that little fight that they had there. And so Nick Sanchez picked up his second win in a row, and Raja Caruth followed him home and completed the 1-2 for Rev Racing. And that's how the point standings actually look as well. Sanchez and Caruth are actually tied at the top of the point standings, although Sanchez holds the tiebreaker with 2 wins to Caruth's 0. So, Brandon, I know Daniel Dye was just reinstated this week. He didn't end up missing any races. I know that was a big question mark. We haven't talked too much about that on the show, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as well. But with that in mind, I guess there is a little bit of competition now for Rev Racing, but do you still think they might be a lock for this championship with how strongly we've been seeing Sanchez and Caruth running in recent weeks?
Yeah, they might still be a lock for the championship. I think Sanchez and Caruth really work well together as teammates and tie for that points lead. But yeah, Daniel Dye being reinstated after what happened, I didn't expect that to happen so quickly, but Rev Racing still could have what it takes. Could third place finish at Kansas.
Yeah, I think, Dye certainly has good equipment, and he could mix it up a little bit as well now that he's back, and that seems to be an issue that's resolved. I must admit I wasn't following the case very closely, so, I don't feel too qualified to comment on that. Obviously, you're innocent until proven guilty, but, it did seem like a bit of a disturbing situation there, so hopefully everybody's okay. That's the most important thing. And we have a comment from Day in the Life here. What do you think of Frank Kimmel's nephew racing in ARCA? Will Kimmel was back in ARCA this week with, the 69 car. Scott Melton obviously still recovering from that incident at Talladega. It's great to see the Kimmel name back in ARCA. Obviously, Frank is a legend of the ARCA Racing Series with his 10 championships and, I think it's like 80 something wins that he's had in the series. So, it's great to see the Kimmel name in there. I don't know that Will's equipment is quite as strong as what we see from Rev Racing or Venturini or KBM, but, it's good to see him fighting up there in the mix. And Adam, I think, came in here in chat as well saying brother of Frank Kimmel. I'm not sure. We'll double check what the relationship is on there. Frank could drive and battle with the best. Absolutely. That there's no denying that. Frank was, like I said, certainly, I think has an argument for one of the best, if not the best, ARCA driver in the history of the series. I remember, growing up as a young race fan, it seemed like he was winning every other weekend, and obviously had that string of so many championships in a row. So, certainly a great driver in his own right, and it's great to see that the family is still involved with the sport. So now we will move on to the Truck Series and a recap of that race. Let me see if I can pull the results graphic up there. There we go. And no surprise up top, Zane Smith picked up his third win of the season, leading 108 of 134 laps and holding off a hard charge from Ty Majeski, who finished in second. Now, Smith's only non-top 10 finish this season is the Las Vegas race, in which he was disqualified, but he did still cross the line in second place that night. So if he hadn't had a disqualification, he would have a string of top 10 finishes still going from all the way at the start of the year. So it's been a great start to the season for him. So with that in mind, Brandon, with how well Smith has been running, do you think he's already a lock for the championship 4?
Now, this one I feel a little bit more confident on. Zane Smith already got the win locked at Daytona, and then at Circuit of the Americas, kind of edged his way into a win at COTA, though almost being taken by it was Alex Bowman, I think, and was it Alex Bowman and Kyle Busch having that fiasco in Austin?
Yep.
Yeah, and then able to get that in. So, and I'm really surprised by that stat. The Las Vegas being his only non-top 10 finish. That's really impressive for the Truck Series. Zane Smith having the equipment and also the skill in the cockpit to get it done week in and week out. And I think he also got engaged here recently. And I think he's going to be one of those locks for the 4.
Yeah, I've cautioned lock here. I think maybe I should have said championship 4 favorite. Because even you think of a season that Kevin Harvick had a couple of years ago in the Cup Series. And he didn't even end up making the championship 4. So you never know how the playoffs and stage racing and all those variables are going to fall your way when we get later in the season. But the way he's running right now will be absolutely shocking if he doesn't get back to a championship 4 where he's been the last couple of years. And, once he gets there, I think it reminds me of the season that John Hunter Nemechek had last year. And of course, we all know how that went for him at Phoenix. So he's going to have to perform the night that he gets there. But I think certainly he has to be considered a favorite at this point. I guess just to follow up, how impressive do you think it is for Front Row Motorsports, a name that we associate with the midfield at best in the Cup Series, but they have a truck satellite team now that, obviously they get a lot of stuff from David Gilliland's team and have a close relationship with them. But I've got to imagine that's a big morale boost for everybody at the FRM team to have a truck program that's capable clearly of competing for a championship this year.
It's really impressive. And I think it bleeds a lot. I hope it starts to bleed a lot into their Cup team. Michael McDowell had a pretty impressive ride through the middle of the race at Kansas on Sunday. Front Row Motorsports, they're not the back. They're mid-row motorsports, but hopefully that'll improve. And I think their truck team definitely gives them a lot of talent pipeline and also development.
Yeah, well, I saw a tweet from Dale Jr. this week. He was complimenting Zane Smith and how well he's been running and called him a future Cup talent. He's performed that well. And, with no disrespect to Front Row Motorsports, I would like to see Zane get an opportunity if he can continue this run that he's been on and continue his development at a top team. And maybe Front Row Motorsports, a couple of years down the road, if they continue to develop themselves, they can be that team for him. Crazier things have happened in the sport before. We've seen what Furniture Row Racing was able to do. They were a back marker to midfield team for many, many years. And then Martin Truex Jr. came in and won a championship with them. So, you get the right people in the right places. You never know what might happen.
Maybe bring the Matt Tiff 36 back for whenever he gets up there and have a 3-car front row team.
Yeah. And like you said, Michael McDowell has been having a great season as well by Front Row Motorsports standards. He's had some very strong runs and obviously won the Daytona 500 last year. I think, there's been a lot of great things happening for that team over the last couple of seasons. So it's been great to see.
Hoping the best for Todd Gilliland too in the 38, but rookie year, it's got to get the bruises out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always tough when you're coming up into the Cup Series, and certainly to be doing it as young of an age as Todd Gilliland and Harrison Burton are. Cup Series drivers born in the 2000s, just kind of mind blowing. But that's where we are. But they have certainly done a solid job so far this season. That being said, obviously there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm sure we're going to continue to see that as the season goes on. So with all that in mind, like I said, not as many series in action. We know F2 and F3 will be back next week. But Brandon, I want to ask you, what's your one shining moment from this weekend? I'll throw in the Cup race as well if you want to mention a moment from that.
Well, actually, I wanted to move over for my one shining moment all the way over to INDYCAR. I have to go with Mr. Colton Herta for his Tokyo drift in the rain. If you didn't see it, they all started on wets. He went on to win the race. They all started on wets, and he decided early, 1 to 2 laps in, we can do this. We can go on the reds. And so they did. It was a mess to handle. And then they get out there. His wheel goes all the way this way. He's sliding it all the way. And they had never seen an Indy car turn that much without going out of the way. And he was able to manage. He managed to keep that thing going in one direction and ended up winning the race. It was something I've never seen before, but I guess I haven't been seeing things that long either. So that's my one shining moment, though.
And completely agree with you, a day in the life there. It's always a struggle for rookies, generally speaking, but especially when you're with a team that isn't quite as strong as, the top contenders. I imagine it's a pretty steep learning curve, and, hopefully that big break will come for both Gilliland and Burton. I want to go a little bit outside, what we even cover here on a regular basis on Grid Live Encore. I want to give my one shining moment to Roger Penske. We talked a little bit a couple of shows ago about Miles Rowe and the season that he's having in USF 2000. But he was struggling for sponsorship and struggling with funding. And, there was even a question about whether or not he'd be able to complete the full season. Roger just made it clear today that he is going to do whatever it takes to keep Miles Rowe running the full season this year, even if it has to come out of his own pockets. So, it's great to see Roger make a commitment like that, because, the way Miles Rowe's season has been going, he's 4th in points right now, has a win to his name. I think actually maybe a couple of wins to his name, one dating back last year as well at New Jersey Motorsports Park. He's such a young talent, and, it would have been a shame to see him sidelined by something outside of his control. So, hats off to the new owner of IMS and the INDYCAR series for stepping in and making sure that Miles Rowe will have a spot on the grid the rest of this season.
That's something else. Roger Penske is a different breed, and he was born to own this speedway, and it's amazing to see what he's done with INDYCAR and IMS.
I said it when the purchase was made back in 2019. I don't think there's anybody on this planet that was more qualified to buy the speedway if the Holman George family was selling.
Oh, for sure.
Roger has certainly done a fantastic job in the midst of, everything that's been thrown at him, with the pandemic and, all sorts of tension surrounding that and question marks as to, the future of the series entirely, to be thrust in at that particular moment in this particular time. He's done an admirable job, and there is still, I think, room for improvement in many areas in the series, but, we have to give credit where it's due. And, Roger has done some great things. I'm sure he's going to continue to do great things as he's doing now for Miles Rowe. So that is my one shining moment. And see Amber coming in here as well. One of our regulars. Just want to say hello to you. Thanks as always for giving us your support. And I guess we will go ahead and wrap up the show now. So thanks as always for watching. And if you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe to the Grid Network here on YouTube and follow us on all of our social media platforms as well. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you really liked what you saw tonight, consider investing in the Grid Network to help keep us on the air. And take 5 minutes to consider joining our Patreon. And of course, as always, thank you to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have already done so. If you want to take a moment to just make a one-time donation instead, you can buy me a coffee. And thank you to Edward, Amber, and Zach, who have done that. Any amount will help us continue growing this motorsports media outlet here at Grid Network. Thanks as always to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. We have the referral code down below there, GRIDnet. You can use that to gain a little bit of free stock over there. And like I said, thanks as always to them for continuing to support our show. It's going to be a busy week here at Grid Network. I apologize. It's a little bit of a different outro here because we have a lot to cover this week coming up. Like I mentioned, Kobe and Adam are on every single night this week as they prepare for Indy 500 practice coverage, and I will be joining them as well as Joshua Birch throughout the week, so stay tuned for news on that. Joe and Daniel will have the Women in Motorsports program at some time this week as well. And as always, Grid Live pre-race will be back on Saturday, Grid Live wrap-up on Sunday. And we will see you right back here Monday night for Grid Live Encore. Brandon, I understand you're going on vacation next week. I know you mentioned that to me a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully we'll be able to catch you at some point. But, we'll stay tuned for more information on that. Do you have any final thoughts before we let you go this evening?
I just wish you guys best of luck with your Indy 500 practice coverage. I do wish I could join you guys for that, but just a full schedule keeps me away from things like that. But I will be following it all along with you guys, and we'll be definitely tuning in for your coverage. And it's just one of the most special times of the year for motorsport fans, one of the most prestigious parts of the year where, worldwide, it all just comes to a precipice, and it's just fun to see. Indy 500, Monaco, and Coke 600 just all colliding into one. It's going to be a fun Memorial Day weekend.
Real quick, a day in my life. They are not on site at IMS, but they will be watching very closely and giving you all the rundowns from the practice sessions this week and all the coverage there. So stay tuned for that.
Also, bring the All-Star race back to Charlotte. Thank you.
Yeah, I give that my full endorsement as well. So with that, for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks as always for watching, and we will see you next week. Have a good night, everyone.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.